Yo, we live. We live up in the building. It is the Money Game Show. We here with Legacy Builders US in the building. What's popping? Kilian Rashidi is in the building. What's going on? So today we're talking about working hard isn't enough. So yeah, what's that about? Let's go in.
Yeah, man. At the end of the day, man, when it comes to work, man, a lot of people think just because they work hard, they go to work every day, that's going to get the job done. You could work hard all day and not get what you need to get done. So working hard is just not enough. You got people that put in 70, 80 hours a week and have no progress at the end of the day when it comes to life. So working hard is just not enough. You got to work smarter, not harder. And a lot of people don't realize that. You know, you had a job and you've been there for 30, 40 years and you can't control, you can't make any progress in life. You can't pay your bills. You're still behind on all your bills. Anything that goes wrong, you fall behind. So just working hard does not get you success. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Mm-hmm. That's real shit. So Kelly, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, I do agree to a degree. I think you do have to do both. You have to work hard and you got to work smart. Because you can work hard, but if you're also not working smart, the things that you work hard at, you're not really going to get too far. I think that you have to have work ethic. Like you have to actually put in the effort to do the thing that you want to do.
Right.
So, because you could make the mistake and run in place and thinking that you're actually moving.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Versus actually taking the steps. And I think a lot of times, most people don't know what to focus on. So they think that they're getting ahead by just doing something versus the thing that's most efficient and most effective that's going to get them to the next level or to the next point in their life.
Right.
And I think that's the confusion. That's the misrepresentation in their life, is that they think that they're actually moving because they're doing something. It's not really progress. It's just running in place. It's almost like the difference between you jogging outside and you running on the treadmill. If you run on the treadmill, you're just running in place. You're not really going anywhere. You might feel like you're doing something. It's better than sitting still, but you're still not really going anywhere versus actually running.
Right.
It's two different things. You get what I'm saying? And so I think that's where we get the confusion from. And I think a lot of more people need to have more more structure of what they want to do with their life. Because if they have things in place, if they're more organized, then they can see how they would want to live their life. They should treat it more like a business versus just like living their life freely and willy-nilly.
Right.
It's unorganized. They're just existing at that point versus actually living.
Now that's real shit. And it's like I think a lot of times people when they because working hard is important, because I think on a base level you have to have the mindset of working hard, because if you don't have the mindset of working hard, then you're going to default into trying to find ways to get the best results without having to work hard. And what I mean by that is that you're going to try to find shortcuts to try to get to a certain place. And then you're going to waste time trying to find shortcuts, but the actual real shortcut is the working hard. So what I mean by that is, for example, let's say you have a person who's trying to build a business or whatever. Let's say they're trying to do like an online business or whatever it is like that. Right. And so they might say, oh, well, I want to work, you hear the phrase work smarter, not harder, right? Which makes sense in a certain context. But they're like, well, you tell them, hey, if you want to do online business, get you a website, start promoting, start doing less, some videos to get traffic to your site, so forth and so on, right? So that's going to take some hard work to make that happen, to build a product, get the website, get the customers, yada, 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 right? But the problem is that when people don't have the baseline of working hard, what they're going to do is they're going to spend a lot of time to say, okay, how can I actually make what I want to make happen without having to do the hard work it takes to actually make it happen? So for example, a person starting from scratch, they may know that, damn, you know what, it's going to cost me this amount of money or this amount of time to get the website done and to build the products, right? But instead of working hard to do that, they're going to say, oh, well, is there a way I can do this for free? Is there a cheaper way to make this happen? Is there a way I can do this thing without actually putting in the work to make the thing happen? And so they waste a lot of time, and then they end up not doing anything, or they come up with something that's, you know, cheap and low standard and something that's not really actually going to benefit them or anybody else. You see what I'm saying? So a person who has the work ethic of I have to work hard, they're going to work hard to create the website, to create the products, to market it, to be consistent and all this other stuff. So they already have a baseline of understanding that just on this level, I had to do this to get to here, to get to this point. You see what I'm saying? So now once they start making money, and once they start getting more notoriety or whatever it is like that, then they can say, okay, cool. So instead of doing this, I could hire somebody to do the part I was doing, and then I can do something else. So that's working smarter, not harder. But they had to work hard first to get to the point where they could even work, quote unquote, smart. You see what I'm saying? But the baseline had to be the hard work, because they needed to do the hard work to realize that they even needed to hire someone to do the hard work they've been doing. You see what I'm saying? And I think that's the thing. So I think sometimes people, they come into this with a lazy mindset. When you come into it with a lazy mindset, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment, because this is the thing. Even if you're working smarter, somebody, even if it's not you, has to do the hard work. You understand what I'm saying? That's just how it is. Somebody got to do the part that's the hard part. Period. You know what I mean? So yeah, so I think now go ahead.
So I think it's about to your point, like you said, the mindset, right? Mm-hmm. Of a person working a 9 to 5, they only really asked to do a few tasks. Right. And once they do those specific tasks, they're done. Mm-hmm. They don't have to think anything outside of that. Nothing extra. That's just it. And even that, they probably half-assing that anyway. Right. Somebody who's actually like starting their own business or running their own business, the accountability is fully on them.
Right.
So everything that they do, it's going to be on them versus they can push that off on somebody else. So the point of hard work, one, is just being consistent at doing the right thing.
Right.
That's it. That's the main thing, right? And most people, and I say like that, but it's the truth. Most people don't even want to do that. I think to a degree, a lot of people are. It's not that they're lazy. I think a lot of people fear success.
Right.
I think they fear the idea of being successful. Mm-hmm. Be successful, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that success, and nobody wants to be held accountable for that responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really truly what it is for the most part. So then if they work less, or if they're not considered a hard worker, it's like, think about it like this. It's like, you ever knew somebody who was smart, but pretended that they weren't smart?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that they wouldn't be asked to do certain things.
Right. Exactly.
It's just like that.
That's a fact. I ain't gonna front. I'll be doing that sometimes.
I ain't pointing no elbows, but
what is that?
But that's literally what it is, you know. So we're not gonna ask you to do it, right? But he knows what to do. He knows what he's doing, right? But it's the same concept, you know. And I've done that before too. I've played dumb before, just so somebody will ask me to do something. To be honest with you, I've done that before, so I will have the responsibility of doing something. But I think that I think everybody works hard at something, and it's just a question of, if you actually love what you're doing. To be honest with you, it's not really. It is hard, but it's not really hard. Because and that's the thing I want to highlight too. Find something that you like love to do.
Yeah.
Because if you love to do that thing, it's not really work. It's just you doing what you love to do.
Right.
So most people get up every day and don't want to do what they're doing. So then, as a consequence, they become lazy at it. They're frustrated. They're angry. All of these different emotions, because they really don't want to do that thing.
Right.
But if you get up every day doing what you want to do, doing what you love to do, you can spend hours doing it, don't even realize the time passed by, and still continue doing it.
Right.
So I think a lot of times you have to find out what you want to do and do that thing. At that point, even because you're gonna have to put in some type of work regardless. Work as something that you enjoy doing, so it doesn't feel like work.
Mm. And also,
Yeah,
I say,
man.
go Rashi, I got to you.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say is that you just got to be strategic to all your points, though. Like you actually legit have to be strategic at the end of the day, because strategy is really gonna dictate how you move going forward. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's about planning and planning properly. So if you don't have a plan in place, you don't know where you're going. You can't control what you're doing. You know, you don't know. You can't document certain things. A lot of people just do a lot of things willy nilly, not planning in advance, not planning ahead of time. You know, so that's really a real thing at the end of the day also too, as I'll say.
Right. And shout out to Hakeem in the chat and Art in the chat. Appreciate y'all. So this is the thing too. So because even with the title of working hard isn't enough, a lot of times people think working hard in the context of making money is going to be enough. So they say, if I work really hard, I'll make more money. Right. And that's not necessarily true, which makes the statement working hard isn't enough true, because this is the thing is that sometimes if we're talking about in the context of making more money, yes, you can work harder and make more money, but working harder doesn't necessarily equate to making more money. So definitely if you're in a job where you have a particular salary, right? Working harder is not going to make you more money because you're just going to be making the same amount of money anyway. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you're running a business, working harder could make you more money only if the work that you're doing is strategic in order to bring in more money. You feel what I'm saying? So for example, let's say if you own a pizza shop, you might be working hard making pizzas and selling the pizzas, right? But you may not necessarily make more money because your pizza is good, but it ain't great. So now you might say, you know what can we do to make our pizza taste better than anybody else's pizza? Oh, let's do this secret ingredient we did that made our shit different than all the rest. So now people start coming. They're like, yo, this pizza is fire. And they keep coming back because your pizza is different than the other person's pizza, right? So it's the strategy that made you, get more versus you actually working harder. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? So you could market it in a certain way that brings in more people. It's the marketing that made you make more money versus you just working harder. You understand what I'm saying? Because you're still probably working the same amount of hours cooking the pizza and doing all the other stuff, but the strategy and the marketing caused you to get more shit popping. So a lot of times what people don't realize is that they'll work hard, but they'll be like, damn, why am I not progressing or making more, or something else isn't moving in the direction? It's because it's not about you working harder, right? It's about the strategy. Now, this is the part where the working smarter could come in, meaning I can do something to add on to what I'm doing to create more situations for me to get more customers, or for me to level up, or for me to get more things going. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's it's an interesting balance. You see what I'm saying?
It's like the old saying, don't work hard, work smart.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could do both, then you're better off. If you could do both, you're better off. And working smarter also means delegation. Hiring somebody, not being, and sometimes there's a lot of ego in the working hard, because like, even like, I'll give an example with me. It's like I used to change my own oil and change my brakes and all that type of shit.
Right.
And I used to like look at other dudes who didn't do their own shit, like, oh, you weak, you whack, you this, you that. But it's like, if you got the money to pay for it, then why use your time to do something that you could have somebody do it, and they probably even do it even better than you, more efficiently, and you can use your time for something else.
Right.
You understand? And but sometimes it's the ego, like, oh well, I changed my own brakes and I changed my own oil, and I'm a man and I know how to get down and dirty and blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. Like, knowing how to do it is cool, but it's like you actually better off in many cases, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're better off paying somebody to do that thing, and then you could use your time to do something else.
Right.
And be more strategic and be more efficient with your stuff, instead of allowing your ego to slow you down and to stop you from, working more efficiently and working smarter.
I had a question, because I was always thinking about this. Is it a thing where people I should say this. Can some people not afford to work smart in certain situations? And what I mean by that is this, right? So let's say, because I'll see entrepreneurs say this all the time, where like you'll see someone like, let's say like a Grant Cardone will say, "Oh yeah, so I hired these people to do this," right? So because he hired those people to do that, then he gets more done, which is actually working smarter. But he was able to afford to do that. You see what I'm saying? So are there situations where a person just really can't afford to work smart at the time because their idea of what would be working smart requires a certain resource they don't have at the moment? You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like a person could have an idea of, hey, I want to do A, B, and C, but the implementation of the idea is going to, which is smart, is going to require this amount of resource which they don't have. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, is there times where a person can even afford to work smart and they just have to work hard until they can afford to work smart? Do you see what I'm saying? So that's what I was saying earlier, is like, I feel like hard work has to be the basis, because especially if you're a person who's trying to be an entrepreneur and you're trying to start something, nobody really gives a shit about what you start in, and you may not have the resources to get people to help you start it. So then it's kind of like, I got to do all this shit myself at this point. So it's like, how can I really work smart when I really need to work hard to even get to the point where I can even work smart? You know what I'm saying? So what's that type of shit?
Yeah, no, to your point, no, that is a real thing, because you do have to actually, in those situations, you do actually have to work harder before you can work smarter. Because if you have, certain bills to pay, if you got to keep a roof over your head, all that type of stuff, and you have at that point, a certain goal, to get it done. You got to keep doing that until you can afford to do something else, until you can try to do something else. Meaning that if your bills are $2,000 a month for you to have a car to get to work and to pay the roof over your head, you got to keep making that $2,000 until you can do something else at the end of the day. So if that means you got to put in 60 hours that week, 70 hours that week, every week consistently, because otherwise you don't have a car to get to work and you don't have a home to go back to, you have to keep working hard. But you just don't want to get caught in that trap, because that's what happens, is that people get caught in that trap. The definition of insanity, like, is doing the same thing, expecting different results. So the problem is, the person that does that for 2 years is like, you could have thought of a better plan over time. But what happens is, people get caught up in life and just continue to keep working hard with no end at sight, no goals at the back end of life. Meaning that same person, everything's going to go up. You look at times now with inflation. You can't do that now, because at the end of the day, inflation is going to take over. So if it's $2,000 the first 6 months of the year to maintain your bills, it's probably $2,400 towards the end of the year. So that means that you're just working harder, but you can't outpace, and keep up with inflation and what's going on. And so people get stuck in that trap. But to your point, there is a stage that you got to do that, but you got to evolve and figure out different ways to get more money and work smarter, not harder.
Right.
I think that a lot of people in that position to where they can't afford to, do something on their own, right? So you might be the person that had the idea, but it's going to take you 10, 20 years for it to actually become something or anything at all, right? So you're better off joining ventures with someone who pitched the idea to somebody. Hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think about this? I have this much capital to start it off. I did my research. It costs, $10,000 to start this. I already got about 7. I need the other 3. What do you think about this? And are you willing to join in? Are you willing to make this happen? Why? Because even rich people do it all the time. Think they use their money? They borrow their money against the loan, but whatever bank or whatever company that they want to borrow the loan against. They don't use their own money. So why should we have all our own capital to do it? I think that we underestimate the power of joint ventures, because if you're going to do it on your own, it will take you forever. Can it be done at some point? Yes. Is it possible? Yes. Probably. And that's what I want to understand, is that if you're making a certain amount, like Roger said, with the inflation, the cost of living keeps going up. When will you catch up to start doing that thing?
Yeah, and it's an interesting point you made, because then the thing is that working smarter is basically kind of like you got to think outside the box. You know what I'm saying? To be able, so even if you don't have the resources, the thinking outside the box is, oh, let me team up with somebody who does have the resources. I have the idea, they have the resources, work together to make it happen. So I think that could also happen too. But also I think when it comes to, you know, working smarter, there has to be an element of either time, money, or both, because that gives you the leverage to be able to work smarter in those particular situations. But if you don't have the time or the money, then hard work always has to happen anyway, because that's all you have to do. That's all you have left. But I believe in, you definitely, I think it's like what they say in college where you take prerequisites and shit. Like I feel like hard work is the prerequisite. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like every person needs to understand the concept of hard work, because I don't believe they will be able to survive long term without it. Because like I think of somebody like, look at like someone like 50 Cent, right? So 50 Cent came from the ground up. Like this nigga was, you know, poor, and he's like a rich motherfucker now. And if you look at his firstborn son, who's he been giving this nigga money, and this nigga be acting like a bitch ass. So his son has the fucking resources. Like really do shit, and he's just sitting on his ass complaining and bitching. Whereas 50 Cent knew, this nigga was coming out with mixtapes, grinding, almost got killed doing all, you know what I'm saying? So he had the hard work, and then now he's working smarter, which is why 50 Cent is where he's at. You feel what I'm saying? But he had to get to the point to work smarter. But his son can literally do the shit he needs to do now, but the fact that he don't actually have the mindset of hard work is probably why he's just sitting on his ass and expecting shit to happen.
Right. Yeah. You know, and that's, and somebody may have mentioned it before, but I'll just, you know, touch on it again. Like that's the whole point with hard work. It's not just the work itself, but it's actually putting yourself in position to get exposed to the work.
Right.
And so you can decide, okay, does it make sense to me to do this shit, or can I get somebody else to come in and do it, or can I delegate it, or now that I know what it is, I can know how to deal with it. I can know how to handle it, you know, because, you know, it's funny because thinking about hard work, I realized that like I was never smart. As a student, I was never smart. So I got good grades and shit, but I was never smart, like naturally smart. I worked hard.
Right.
Like I studied real hard. I did my, you know, I spoke to teachers. I had tutoring. I went to after school class, study joints. You know, I worked really hard to get good grades. But and the reason why I know that is because when I got to college, certain classes, no matter how hard I worked, I could not figure it out. Like certain math and science classes, your boy was fucked.
Right.
Like I tried to do computer engineering, computer code, and writing code and figuring out derivatives and functions and calculus and so that's another thing to consider about hard work. Sometimes there's a limit. Because if you can't will yourself to understand something, no matter how hard you work, you're gonna have to either move in another direction or find somebody who can handle that shit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because hard work is great, but like you said, hard work, you know, working hard isn't enough necessarily. Because you could be like, look, man, I'm willing to stay on this all night if I have to. And then when they check you in the morning, they're like, so have you made any progress? Nope.
Nah.
They're like, but nigga, you stayed on it all night. Yeah, I've been up all fucking night working on this shit.
Right.
And that hard work. Pause. And niggas looking at you like, so, but what have you done? What do you have to show? And it's like, nothing.
Right.
Because I'm not the guy for this. You see what I'm saying? I'm not the guy for this. So it's like, yo, sometimes you know, that delegation, again, hard work is cool because having the mentality of hard work will put you in position to at least tackle it.
Right. And it will make you realize you might not be the guy because you're not going to know you're not the guy until you do the hard work. You feel what I'm saying? You're going to be like, shit, this is
Exactly. You feel me? So it's like hard work. Ain't nothing wrong with hard work, but you gotta smarten up too, nigga. Like you know what I'm saying? It ain't just about hard work. And that's what I'm saying. Like when I got to college, certain class, like regular classes, you know, English class, all that shit. But when it came to that technical shit, bro, I swear to God, this not according to my plan at age 20. I'm not supposed to be here.
Right.
I'm supposed to be some 6-figure engineer guy. Like that's what I'm supposed to be.
Right.
That was my quote unquote dream initially, to be a fucking engineer or, you know, a scientist or some shit. Cause I thought that's where all the money was. I was on some nerd shit, but I didn't realize I wasn't really a nerd.
Right.
Cause nerds naturally get shit. They're like, oh, they see all that fucking those squiggly lines that talk about math formulas. Like, you know, like the show I watch, it's called Young Sheldon, from that dude from Big Bang Theory or whatever. They naturally understand that shit. Me? Nope. And it's crazy because let me explain. The harder I worked, the worse it got. Because bro, like I said, I worked hard. I would go to tutoring, study course in high school. So I said, all right, I'm gonna do the same shit for college. I'm gonna go get some tutoring. I'm going to go to study hall. I'm gonna get study groups. I'm gonna coordinate with my classmates, and the harder I work, the more time that I put in, the worse my grades got. I went from like a C all the way down to a D to possibly failing shit. And I was like, oh man, this is not me. And the fucked up part is because my major was science and engineering, like science and math was exactly what was stopping me. And I'm like, nah, this ain't, I must be a different nigga. I can't figure this shit out. You know what I'm saying? And then at that time, that's when I was making beats with Lucario, and I pretty much ended up dropping out of school. Because I would be in the student lounge instead of studying. I would be making beats and shit. And I was like, you know, I'm wasting my time here. I'm wasting money because, you know, college, you got to pay for that shit in real time. It ain't public school no more. Right. So I was like, you know, I'm fucking wasting my time here. And then that's when I realized I'm not a college graduate. No matter how hard I work, I'm not gonna graduate college. It didn't make sense. You understand? But again, like I said, the mentality to work hard at least puts you in position so you could understand the reality of the situation.
Right.
You understand? So you don't, and to me, I think it helps you to be able to make decisions. Cause like, for example, like you mentioned 50 Cent's son, he never been exposed to nothing.
Right.
So all of his bitching and complaining is just from being a spoiled rich kid.
Right.
He's never actually got his hands dirty or really understood. Like he's complaining, but he don't even know why he's complaining really. Like right. He's complaining only because everything in his life has been easy. Exactly. Whenever he touches on, whenever he gets, I was gonna say whenever he touches something hard, but pause. Major pause. But whenever he comes face to face with hard work or anything that's a challenge, then he comes with the fucking complaining and shit. So that's what I'm saying. Hard work is good. There's nothing wrong with hard work, but you still gotta be smart to know and understand limitation. Oh, that's basically what I'm saying. Hard work and the mentality of hard work will help you to understand your limitations. Exactly. So they'll understand when you're not the guy and you have to get someone, or if you just need to move in a totally different direction. It's real shit.
It's real shit. You know, and I think just in general, like, you know, I think, but if people understand everything in its totality of hard work, also working smarter and combining that together, that's when motherfuckers is going to really, really soar and get the shit cracking. Because it's crazy. Like, you know, that movie, The Social Network, the one that was about Mark Zuckerberg, and I think
Facebook.
Jesse Eisenberg was playing the role. And I remember hearing there's like this long ass monologue in the beginning of the movie where he's like talking to the girl at the bar or whatever. And it's a long ass, and I heard that they did that take like 98 times, like over and over again in a row and shit. And I'm just like, damn, that's a long ass monologue to be doing that many fucking times consistently. And it's just like shit. And it's like, so this, and even this reminds me of when I saw Cassidy perform in Harlem and they had that little parade joint and he was on top of the bus over and over again for hours. And I'm just like, all of that shit is hard work. You feel what I'm saying? But the thing is that combining that with strategy, got him to where he's at and got Jesse Eisenberg to where they're at and doing all these other things. So I think it's a combination of both. When you understand both of them, I think that's when you really succeed, because it's like, it's one of those things where when you understand both aspects, then you have appreciation for both aspects so that you can understand like, okay, hey, I understand the hard work it's going to take for me to get here. But then I also understand, since I've done all the hard work, I know all of the parts of all these things. So now I can delegate, and now I can do this and I can do that to make things flourish a little bit more smoother in this situation, because I know how much work it takes. So since I know how much work it takes to do A, B, and C, because I've been doing A, B, and C, I can now be at a point where I can hire somebody to do A, B, and C for me. So it frees me up to do the other hard work I might need to do for the next step. You know?
Hard work. Yeah, facts.
No shit. But any last things I want to say about this topic and all that?
Well, yeah. Contact Legacy Builders, US.com. It's
Sure.
LegacyBuildersUS.com. Yeah, exactly. Look, don't think I didn't notice Rashidi stunting with the Panamanic sunroof. You know what I'm saying? If you want to put yourself in position to get your own panoramic sunroof, nigga, holla at LegacyBuildersUS.com. They'll get you right, get your credit right, so you can put yourself in position to make even better business decisions moving forward, and put yourself in position to get your own sunroof and shit. You know, maybe later on we're gonna see him in a convertible. Who knows? So yeah, man, let's get it. But guys, yeah, definitely go to LegacyBuildersUS.com, like United States, US.com, and get with these guys, book a consultation. Make sure you check out any one of their upcoming events. Soon they're gonna have products for y'all. They're gonna have lessons in finance and business and all that shit for y'all, man. So make sure y'all stay tuned, man. These dudes is on it. You understand? These dudes is young dudes in the financial education sector. And it's very important, man. Education is everything. Because there's so many things I know now. There's so many things I'm doing with my own money that my parents had no fucking idea. My parents had no fucking idea. And I actually feel bad for them. You understand? Because, and I feel bad for our family. Because if I had known this shit, like, the family would be in a whole different position right now. But, you know, it is what it is. You know, life is life, and we learn things at different times. But, you know, education is a key. So, guys, go to LegacyBuildersUS.com. Make sure you schedule a consultation and get your mind right, get your money right, get your life right.
All right. So, guys, that's pretty much it. We are out of here. We'll holler at y'all later. Remember, the truth is inside you. Peace. We gone. We out. Later.